Are we live for broadcast? All right, good evening. Thank you to those of you who are here in the room for our candidate forum for the 72nd and 73rd House of Delegates districts. And thank you to those who are watching. We're broadcasting this by Zoom. We are videotaping it. You can see the camera here in front, and we are going to be recording it so it will be available for use later on. My name is John Easter. I'm with ChamberRVA. Want to welcome you here for this forum. We've been doing forums like these for about 15 years now. I think it's a very important part of civic engagement to make these opportunities available to people, because we actually have 15 House districts within the parameters of the chamber. We don't do every single House race. We do ones that we think are more likely to be competitive. These two candidates were competitive 2 years ago, and I think they'll be competitive again this year. So we're glad to have them, and we'll also hear from Skylar Van Valkenburg in a little while. But the chamber is a regional chamber. We have the city and 7 surrounding counties in our area. We do a lot of work in workforce development, in promoting the business community, but this is an important part of what we do too. And I happen to handle government affairs. I do lobby at the General Assembly. So, I think this is an important thing for us to do. So thank you all for coming to do that. The first thing I would like to do, we're in this beautiful facility here at Reynolds Community College, and I would like to invite Paula Pando, who is president of Reynolds Community College, just to come up and give you a very brief comment. Paula.
Run up and run off, because I know today's show is not about this college, but about democracy in action. We are so thrilled to welcome you to Reynolds Community College. Next year, we will be celebrating our 50th year of educational opportunity for the extraordinary communities that we serve. Welcome. I hope you all enjoy the evening. This is what our country is all about: debating the issues, learning about the issues, and we're so glad to be a part of it this evening. So thank you. Welcome to our beautiful campus, and get out there and vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. For the benefit of those of you in the audience, I want to just very briefly go over the rules that have been agreed to by the campaigns. We're going to start off with 2-minute openings. We did a coin toss a few minutes ago. Rodney Willett ended up winning the toss, and he's going to go first. And then Mary Margaret Castleberg will go second. We'll have the same order on closes. Generally, questions are going to be the same question, exact same questions can be asked to each candidate, and they'll each have 90 seconds to respond. Our moderator may ask what we call a lightning round, which would be a short set of questions where we're looking for very short answers, where we're trying to cover a lot of territory in a short amount of time. In that case, we've asked the candidates to limit their answers to 1 or 2 sentences. And then we will close off with with a 2-minute closing. We have a timer in front, sitting here in front, who will be keeping track of the 90 seconds. She will hold up a sign when there's 30 seconds remaining, and another sign when it's time to stop. And we've asked the candidates, once that red sign goes up, finish your sentence, and then we ask you. So those are the rules for the evening. So my privilege now is to introduce our moderator, Jeff Shapiro from the Richmond Times Dispatch. I'm sure probably all of you know Jeff. Very experienced political columnist, writes great columns with lots of insights after me all the time. Find out all the things I really didn't know, even though I spent a lot of time in state government. But Jeff clues us in on a lot of the backstory. Very knowledgeable person, and we're very much looking forward to his serving as moderator. So Jeff, you come up, and he's going to introduce the candidates for you. Thank you, Jeff.
Evening. Jeff Shapiro with Richmond Times Dispatch. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your consideration of trying to took my folder, but
You didn't want questions, did you? Yes.
And thank you for your consideration of safety and health of others. Good evening to the candidates. Though we'll open this evening's festivities, it matters to take that the Challenger, everyone cast words introduced first. Challenger Castleberg is making her second run for the House of Delegates and a second time against Rodney Willett. She is an investment advisor, with a portfolio manager at several firms, also an advisor on mergers and acquisitions. Ms. Castleberg is an alum of St. Catherine's School, Princeton University, and the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. She lives in Henrico, and she and her husband have 2 children. Incumbent Rodney Willett making his second run for the House of Delegates, and of course, the second time. Mr. Willett elected his first term in 2019, when he was practiced in the 1990s, is now leading a firm that advises nonprofits and provide housing, education, and health services. He is an alumnus of the Collegiate School, College of William and Mary, and its law school. He lives in Henrico County, and his wife have 3 children. And Mr. Willis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, ChamberRVA, for this opportunity to address the important issues of the day. As Jeff said, I am a Virginia native, lived in Henrico most of my life. I'm a lawyer, now a technology consultant, but most importantly, a father and a husband. I'm very honored to serve as the delegate from the 73rd, and certainly appreciate the support of the voters of the 73rd who give me the dream job of a lifetime. I'm also proud of what I've been able to accomplish in the last 2 years of serving in this position. I've passed more bills than any other freshman delegate. That includes 7 bills that passed in the 2021 session. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce named me the freshman delegate of the year because of my support of businesses. I was the first freshman named to chair the committee. I chaired the Behavioral Health Subcommittee in the House of Delegates. So proud of what we do there. And I mentioned that the bills I passed this past year, or this past session, all 7 of those bills I passed had bipartisan support. I'm very proud of the fact that I reached across the aisle in bringing this legislation forward. When I ran a couple of years ago, I had several priorities, which included early childhood education, protecting the environment, and then passing common sense gun safety laws. And I'm fortunate that we were able to pass laws in all of those areas. Early childhood, we expanded the opportunities for at-risk 3 and 4-year-olds. In fact, we had the most at-risk 3 and 4-year-olds enrolled this year that we've ever had in the Commonwealth. So very proud of that. On the environment, Virginia is one of only 5 states in the country to have both the carbon neutral by 2050 law, as well as the strict vehicle emissions. Only 5 states have done that. And then finally, common sense gun safety legislation. One of the reasons I ran in 2019 was because of the inaction on that issue by the Republican-led House of Delegates. No action was taken during the special session. We came in and passed 7 gun bills. Very proud of that. Thank you so much.
I thank you also for being here. Thank you to the chamber, to our moderator, to Rodney, to people that are tuning in, and a special thanks to family and friends that are in the audience. I am Mary Margaret Castleberg. I'm a wife, a mother of Bridget and Jean, who are both here, and a financial professional and small business woman. And I'm proud to be from this community. I'm really thrilled that Bridget and Jean have come back to Henrico to start the next chapters in their life at Virginia Tech. Henrico is and always has been home, and I have loved serving this community over the decades to make it stronger for everyone. I look at my campaign really as a continuation of that service. It's about relationships. It's about long-term relationships and building those relationships. And as I've gone across the district over the last months to every corner of the district, I'm really sad to hear people say that they have lost trust in our institutions. And I think part of that is leadership that we need some changes. I will do the hard work to be transparent and accessible and to build on those relationships. I'm engaging with people, making friends, old and new. That's actually the fun part of campaigning, is meeting so many great people. And I'm really excited about the coalition that I'm building across the district between conservatives, moderates, swing voters, and some Democrats that want to bring change and common sense back to Virginia. I don't believe you can govern responsibly if you don't have relationships and sense of the contract between voter and delegate. And that's built on relationship and trust. And it's not just a transactional relationship, that ends and begins on election day. What I'm also hearing from voters across the district is we need to deal with education. We want to focus on the issues. Education, and I'll get into my 4 Ps of education as we go through the evening, taxes and higher taxes and utilities, and finally, the toxic cancel culture that has pervaded and infected our society. We need to bring it into that. Thank you, and let's get to it.
I believe the first question is to the challenger. Do you support or oppose mandatory vaccinations for COVID-19 as well as mandatory masking requirements?
I believe that people should get vaccinated after consultation with their doctor. I would stop short of a vaccine mandate. Again, I believe that's a decision for individuals to make between them and their doctor. So that's where I am at.
And are you comfortable with mandatory vaccinations, say measles, mumps, and polio, and how would you reconcile your support for those vaccinations with your position on COVID, James?
Yeah, just to be clear, vaccinations aren't required for those childhood diseases or immunization. So the state law requires immunization record be presented before students enroll in kindergarten. So for example, if a child has had chickenpox, then they don't have to get the chickenpox vaccine, same for MMR. The distinction, in my view, is the distinction with the difference is that those vaccines have history. We've got decades of data. Before there was a mandatory requirement in terms of long-term effects, we're not even 1 year into the vaccine being available for injection into someone's arm. And so I believe it's premature based on the data.
We've lost this milestone of 700,000 deaths across this country from this disease. We're almost at 13,000 Virginians having died. I've lost friends and colleagues to this disease, colleagues in my professional work as well, Jeff knows, in the general assembly. We have to do everything we can to protect our families and particularly our children. And I think as you look to the school setting, I think that's an area where we got to do everything we can. So if it's masks, if that's vaccines, I think that's absolutely something the school board should be looking at. And I should applaud the Rankin County schools. We're doing as good a job as any school system in the country right now, staying open and keeping our kids safe. We're one of the lowest infection rates of any school system I've seen. And I applaud the leadership for that. In the hospital, the healthcare setting, I unfortunately, because of family reasons, had spent a lot of time in healthcare settings in the last all through COVID, but even before that, but certainly during the entire COVID period. And I couldn't imagine being in those facilities if those healthcare workers were not vaccinated with masks.
That is yes.
In those settings.
To back off on applause in the interest of time. Virginia is incrementally increasing its minimum wage, pushing towards $15 an hour, but would you favor or oppose making an immediate jump to the $15 level?
Jeff, I absolutely voted for the increase in minimum wage. But we did things with balance. I'm a small business entrepreneur, so I respect the impact of changes. There's a law passed like that to make a change that has a statewide impact. And the compromise we reached wasn't incremental. If we could do it all, that would be wonderful. But I'm also trying to respect the fact that not all businesses are ready for that right now. I will say, given the COVID impacts, a lot of businesses jumped ahead of that and its wages beyond that. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing for workers. And I love the status we have as the best place for business, but also needs to be the best place for workers. those two things are not inconsistent. They can both coexist, and I'd like to see us make progress.
In terms of the minimum wage, we need to make a distinction between the minimum wage and the living wage. They're not interchangeable, they're not the same things. We do need to have a minimum wage that keeps up with inflation, but really the focus should not be on the entry level minimum wage, but what are we doing to take people that enter at a minimum wage, which are hopefully teenagers and people just entering the workforce for the first time, and building on that so that they can improve and progress and have opportunities to grow their wages. I'd like to see more of a focus on that than talking about the minimum wage. In Virginia, regardless of what the minimum wage is, a very small portion of the workforce actually earns the minimum wage. I'd like to leave it up to the private businesses to decide what's best for them.
With elevated awareness of racial equity, Coach George Floyd, what steps can state governments take to promote minority employment, particularly in positions historically closed?
Well, I think that regardless of what the situation is, I think one of the primary goals of government, especially at the state level, is to keep things fair, to keep it a level playing field, enforce the rules, and make it fair for everyone. I don't know if you have specific areas that you're thinking that have been, that you call historically closed off to minorities. But again, it gets back to our education system needs to be able to prepare students for opportunities that they want to pursue. And not every child or every student is going to take the same path. So whether someone's going to come out and go directly to the workforce, or someone's going to go into a credentialing or certification program, 2-year or 4-year program, we need to make sure that when our students finish the 12th grade, they're ready to do what they want to do, and that they have choices and opportunities. And right now, especially with the lack of leadership in Virginia during COVID, and we all saw what happened with the SOL scores. We have a whole cadre of students that are going to come out and not be prepared. And we need to deal with that. That is a top issue. So it comes down, in my view, to training, having opportunities, keeping it fair, and having the government enforce the laws that are already on books.
Jeff, I actually raised my point. I think one of the keys to finding and helping minorities in this employment world, especially the post-COVID world, is their education. And this apropos, consider we're sitting in the community college tonight, and I voted for the enacted the G3 program. Get skilled, get a job, get a pay. It's providing tuition-free assistance to disadvantaged students, getting them into schools like the one we're sitting in tonight, getting them the skills, getting them educated, and then enabling them to go out in the workforce as well. That's the key to success. That's for older students. On the front end, I mentioned my support of early childhood education. We've done a lot for 3 and 4-year-olds. I'd like to see us do more for those 3 and 4-year-olds. Getting those kids on track that early age is the key to their educational success, the key to their economic success.
Question, yours first, Ms. Lloyd. Do you oppose or support Texas-like restrictions on abortion? And assuming in this instance that you have doubts about what additional steps should Virginia take in your view to assure abortion rights?
Just to be absolutely clear at this point, I absolutely support women's right to choose. I absolutely support the legal doctrines established on Roe v. Wade as well as Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Unfortunately, those doctrines are under attack. They're under attack at the state level, and then in jeopardy potentially at the Supreme Court level. So yes, the burden may fall on Virginia to protect a woman's right to choose, to protect a woman's access to reproductive health care. I have to emphasize that because these attacks that you're seeing in other states, it affects all aspects of women's health care. Because they're not going to Planned Parenthood, which provides, yes, abortion is one of the services they offer. That is actually one of the least provided services in those plans. We're counseling on everything related to reproductive health care, women's health, And to see states restricting that access, that is absolutely intolerable. And if we need to codify that in Virginia to protect women here, we should. As a legislator, I should not be making this decision for women. Women should be consulting with the doctor, with the family, with the faith leader, and making these decisions.
What would you support as a Democratic nominee for governor as opposed to amendments to the Virginia Constitution to protect abortion rights?
I can see the exact language on that, but it's certainly something, in theory, we have to go that far in certain.
As far as abortion, just to be clear, I am a pro-life candidate, and every life is precious in my view. And I'm not gonna apologize for that, and that's not an extreme view. In terms of the Texas law, of course, I haven't read the Texas law, and we're talking about Virginia. Virginia isn't Texas. And I don't believe that, you know, we're gonna ban our way to the end of abortion. I don't would say that I would support that law or vote for it, but what I would support are pro-life legislations where we fund organizations and entities that help women, you know, that are facing these difficult unwanted pregnancies. It's an emotional, financial, physical crisis in many situations. And I'd like to see us be focused on not supporting abortion so much as we're supporting crisis pregnancy centers, counseling, and other measures. I've been involved with these types of organizations. And, you know, I believe that the path to ending abortion, you know, to me, the goal is we should be, I'd like to see us in a place where people aren't asking for abortions. And I think the path there is through valuing the culture, building the culture of life. I think that's how we get
Just a quick follow. The Texas law in effect 6 weeks ago, the Republican candidate for governor has said he supported sort of feel pain will effect such students effect the ban of abortion in most cases after the 21st week. Would you support that?
I would not carry legislation that reflects the Texas law bill.
But feel pain.
I would not support legislation that is like the Texas law bill.
Next, do you oppose or support continuing relaxation of voting restrictions in Virginia? Are you for or against no excuse early voting by mail and in person? And would you support a system under which ballots would be sent by mail to all eligible Virginians that they would then complete and return by mail?
That's a lot. I'll see if I can remember them all. I'm okay with early no excuse absentee voting. We've done our due diligence in my campaigns in terms of having faith in Mark Oakley and his operations. Notwithstanding, you know, in terms of voter integrity, I don't believe that voter integrity and voter access are you know, in conflict with each other. I think we need to regularly review our processes to make sure that everything is working smoothly. As a candidate and as a legislator, I believe 45 days is a bit too long. It's very expensive to run those operations for the localities. It's also very expensive as a candidate.
System of voting by mail. These
Oh,
ballots would be distributed by mail and they could be completed. and returned.
absolutely would not be in favor of that. As you know, I've knocked on doors all across the district. I think that about 4,200 so far this cycle. And you go to a door and you see 12 names listed. Those are registered voters, people on the voter rolls at that location. You know, I just know from direct experience that there's a lot of, you know, those voter rolls are not exactly of high integrity when it comes to the data. My sister passed away 2 years ago. She's still listed. You know, I went to a house a couple of weeks ago. There was somebody listed that was 120 years old. really that person's not still there. So, you know, if we're gonna go that route, then we need to be making sure that the voter rolls are clear and. Okay, sorry.
Well,
Yes, well, speaking of doors, I knocked at the door a few weeks ago, and I always ask the question, if there's anything I can help you with at the state level, please let me know. And didn't answer the question originally, as I was walking, I said, oh, there's one thing. You know, during COVID, we were able to vote with absentee ballots, and I had an excuse, and also had early voting at the government center. You guys need to make that the law. I said, well, as a matter of fact, we did. And that tells me the need that was out there. Virginia ranked, believe it or not, 48 next to Texas in terms of voter access less than 2 years ago. Now we're in the top tier of states because of the law changes we made in the last 2 years. So I think we made great progress. I think we should be franchising, not disenfranchising our voters and letting people vote when they can. But I talk to so many workers, they can't find, there's literally not an hour of the day of election day that they can vote because of the childcare needs on the front end of the day. They've got to drop the kid off, they've got to get to work. End of the day, it's the same thing. They really need that extra time, and it's not there. So yeah, absentee voting is critical to them. The idea of a mail ballot, the good news there is that other states have tried that. We've got lessons learned. I would not want Virginia to jump into that without looking at what other states have done, see what's worked and what hasn't worked. I agree with my opponent. Voter integrity is absolutely crucial to the process, and we shouldn't adopt something without absolutely sure of that.
Question regarding post-Floyd police funding, state budget increases dollars for law enforcement, including detention. Notices, does law enforcement require additional funding? If so, for what areas? Detention, training, equipment, salaries?
Yes. So to give a longer answer on that, I had the good fortune to meet with leadership of Virginia State Police, Lisa Gregory, our sheriff, as well as Chief English here to the Rankin County Police. And all of them said the same thing. The most important issue facing the police today is the retention of the recruiting and the retention of the quality of our workforce, quality of the police force. We in the General Assembly have done our best to support those efforts by funding the police. The state police got an unprecedented pay increase this year, actually 8% increase. Same for the sheriffs, actually not once but twice we moved the needle for the sheriffs. And then in Rankin County itself increased the pay for the local officers. It's critical that we have a high quality police force. There's a training component to that. Training costs money, and we have to fund that. That's the kind of investment we can make, and that's the reason, for example, in Rankin County has one of only 13 police departments in the world, that's the country in the world, to receive a triple accreditation. It's a high quality force because they're making the investment in high quality officers.
Yes, I believe we do need to support our police in every possible way. Public safety is job number one. That's one of the most important jobs of the government, state government and local. And, you know, we have seen over the last 2 years that there's been a lot of waffling on the back of the police. Yes, there was a one-time bonus paid to state police after some wrangling. Some sheriffs got it too. For some reason, I don't know if Democrats didn't want to extend that to local law enforcement, and I didn't support that either. I'm curious why that was, but you know, we need training. I've talked with a number of police officers that are feeling like some of the regulations that have passed have affected their ability to carry out their duties. They feel like their ranks are thinning. They not just feel that, that's actually happening. Early retirements, lower enrollment, and then the training academies. And then, you know, my opponent has been backed by at least 2, possibly 3 groups, endorsed by 2 or 3 groups that actively advocate for defunding the police.
Police are protected by law against legal action, excessive force. The General Assembly's Democratic majority is divided on eliminating what's called qualified immunity. Democratic nominee for governor seems to have modified his position, preserving Do you pose or protect such protections for police, and what steps can you take to ensure accountability by officers who resort to excessive force on you?
Yes, we absolutely need to maintain qualified immunity for our law enforcement. And that doesn't mean that we're gonna protect, that doesn't give immunity for people that are negligent or don't perform their duties appropriately. That's not what it is. It's about, protecting people that leave their house every day, go out, put their lives on the line and take risks. As long as they're following the rules and acting, within the guidelines that they've been trained to do, we should have their back. So I absolutely believe that we need to keep that. And what the next part was,
What steps can you
okay.
take to ensure accountability by officers who resort to excessive force on you?
right, I mean, I believe that the police forces need to be overseeing that and calling out people and, the body cameras are a great way. There's been some, confusion over the funding of that, some, I don't know that it was in Rico or other places in the state where people weren't actually wearing them or turning them on. That's a critical part of that oversight. It does require obviously more staff and more part of the budget to actually go through those and review those dates, but I think that's an essential part of the oversight.
Yes, the qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that unfortunately was enacted with racial intent. And we absolutely look at qualified immunity, absolutely for qualified immunity. But don't think for a second that we are not supporting the police. As I mentioned earlier, I met with the leadership of all levels of police in Virginia. And the number one concern they expressed to me again was on funding for recruitment and retention of the police. We discussed qualified immunity. That is not the number one.
As a member of the House Democratic Caucus, you supported the legislation that was made with.
No, I did. And I think the distinction there to make is that we are investing in our police. It's a doctrine that doesn't need to be used because we have the backs of the police through funding, through their own programs, which include insurance benefits. That's really the debate how most of these matters. So it's a very rarely used doctrine. And again, talking to the police directly, that's not the one thing.
The legislature is again talking about doing away with Virginia's sky's the limits practice for campaign contributions. Would you support or oppose replacing unlimited contributions with restrictions on giving by individuals and businesses? And what would those limits be?
So I think we may find some common ground as candidates tonight on this. Why is it that a Virginia House of Delegates, this is a race for a part-time position, why is it that each of us have to raise more than $80 to come to the House? I don't get that for right. If I was running for Congress, maybe, but not for a part-time job in the House of Delegates. So I absolutely believe we need to object. There's less campaign finance reform, including those limits. We tried to take at least one step in that direction this year with prohibiting the use of campaign funds for private purposes. Unfortunately, that didn't fail. I supported it. Certainly, the public supported it, but we absolutely must do that. These races have gotten ridiculously expensive. I feel like I have to call my supporters and tell them, yes, I'm calling you to ask for money so we can raise enough so I can get elected again and do something without campaign finance.
Well, is there a limit to which you would be comfortable?
I'll refer to greater experts on that. And there's a federal limit of $2,800. I don't know if that's the right number for Virginia. It's certainly an argument that people should be able to invest in the candidates and invest in, but the unlimited nature of that, I think. I will say Virginia does an excellent work. We do as well as any state on the disclosure every dollar is accounted for that way. So I like our disclosure and transparency laws, but we need to do something for the overall.
I agree that these races are way too expensive. I don't think I'll be spending $1 million. I'm a Republican. I'll probably do a lot more, a lot less. But I also, they are too expensive. And we're gonna put limits. I'd like to put limits on people in Charlottesville that are hedge fund billionaires, on their limits. But again, actually, I agree with Rodney that the actual dollar amount, I don't know. I would entertain and view, whatever legislation is put forth. But it is, as I go across the district, one of the things that people are most frustrated about is feeling like there's a perpetual election cycle. It's, they're weary from this. And I think the more money that goes into it, I think that exacerbates that. Having, again, I mentioned earlier, 45 days of early voting for a general election and a primary exacerbates that too. So, I think we just need to bring it back to reality.
The major party candidates are endorsing elimination of sales tax on groceries. Generates that a year. Would you support the immediate elimination of such tax, or could you support doing away with that tax as part of a larger overhaul of the tax system?
I would be in favor, or I am in favor of eliminating the gas tax, and I think we can do that easily, take mine. Obviously, it has to pass, but.
The gas tax is the grocery.
I mean, the grocery tax, I'm sorry, the grocery tax, yes, and I, we can pay for that, we're gonna talk more taxes later, but, obviously, there was a $2 billion plus surplus, in the general fund, this, in Virginia, which means that people pay too much in taxes, so there's some room there to reduce. Rodney put forth a Tesla tax rebate that had a price tag of about $250 million. I'd rather see a grocery tax that benefits everybody in Virginia, and not some kind of tax rebate that really only affects some people that are, have the access to the means to buy a Tesla or
Sure.
Yeah, Jim, on the grocery tax, that is absolutely something to look at. In fact, I can't remember who they were, but I believe not one of the two Democrats during the legislature was led by the Republican Party, two Democrats proposed a repeal of the grocery tax. So it's absolutely something to look at. But I really think we should be doing that in a larger context, other tax. There's a reason I reached out to the speaker to ask for an assignment to the finance committee, which I serve now. I am deeply concerned about the tax structure of Virginia. There are inherent inequities in that. It's an aggressive tax system, and we need to look at that. I'm also a businessman. I don't want a tax structure that's too burdensome on business, or let alone too burdensome on families. So I think we can do better with that. I would advocate for looking at the whole pie, the whole equation, and certainly the grocery tax would be part of it.
Moving to transportation, higher fuel taxes are financing made in new highway, bridge, tunnel, and rail construction. Other than that, wants to delay an increase in that tax. Now, would you support that, even if it meant a delay in road construction and rail improvements? And I would note that on the rail side, expanded service and construction of new rail lines along Minnesota in the Richmond region.
So, sorry, Mark.
But it's a major.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're
I
good.
thought you went back to that. Okay, whatever. I believe that the gas tax is too much, too fast. I'm not in favor of that. It's hitting people's pocketbooks, every day. And again, the folks that are commuting to work are the ones that are bearing that cost. So again, the people that are driving the more efficient vehicles, which I'm in favor of that, they're not paying that tax. So it's not hitting everyone equally. And I'm definitely hearing a lot about the pain at the pump, and it's not just inflation, it's inflation and the different gas tax. Transportation, there are now these regional transportation authorities. Central Virginia now has one, and that's part of the direct funding for that. But I'm not sure, I do hear from time to time that people are interested in rail to Richmond, but I'm not sure that that is, a top priority for me right now.
Yes. It's interesting to talk about constituents. I used to live in Northern Virginia, so I used to live at Hampton Roads. I did not think that transportation was going to be a top tier issue here in the last several years. It absolutely is. We need better roads. We need alternative modes of transportation. Includes expanding GRTC, other commuting methods through trails and things like that. Virginia in 2019 had one of the lowest gas taxes in the country. We also were facing declining revenues from the gas tax because of more efficient, fuel efficient vehicles. So we made a pivot on that and have reflected that with additional revenues from the tax, but also reduced the registration fees for vehicles to give consumers some offset, those who were having to pay more. The most significant thing that's happened is that we now as a region can compete for state dollars to do significant transportation projects. The CBTA, I was one of the co-sponsors for that legislation, has enabled us to now see tens of millions of dollars, potential millions of dollars for highway and other transportation related projects. I'm not sure why I might it in favor of that. We were leaving money on the table. Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, Baptist authorities for years, they were getting lots of dollars. We were not allowed to compete for them. Now we can. Rail can certainly be part of that. I would love to see us have more rail. That's a long-term investment. Although we made some progress in short term. So we said experience track recently. A lot of people were traveling.
And then just a quick break, lightning round here to give time break as well. Pay raise for legislators, have we received one since the 80s? Yes or no?
Speaking of minimum wage, jobs and less than minimum wage jobs. I don't think you should have to be independently wealthy to have this job.
Is that a yes? Or is that a no?
Yes.
That's it. Okay, great. Yeah.
I don't feel strongly that it needs to be increased. I agree with Rodney's math on that, but it's hard to live minimum wage. I do think though that the per diem that people took while they were meeting virtually was not in favor of that.
Let the record show House members paid $17,600 a year. It's been locked in for some time. I think you use one of the Fed inflation calculators, you should be paid now $40,000.
I'll write that number down.
On what's called rights to treaties prohibition on compulsory membership. One, preserving it or doing away with it, and would you favor a fair share provision under which non-union employees covered by union negotiated contracts would have to contribute something to the union for the maintenance and upkeep, if you will, of the.
Absolutely, I'm in favor of maintaining Virginia's status as a right to work state, if not as the death knell to our small business economy. Super proud to have the endorsement of the NFIB as a challenger. That's a pretty big deal. In terms of the fair share provision, I'm not in favor of that either. I think it's incumbent upon the unions to make their case to companies. I'm all about if folks want to unionize, great. But make your case to everybody. Sometimes that's the cost of doing business, that you might have some free riders in the system, but no. No one should be forced to pay dues in a union that they don't want to.
Said it in my introduction, Virginia can be both the best place for business as well as the best place for work. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Right to work is on the list of many items we're trying to address in terms of making it a better place to work. Wage increase, we need to do something about the family leave. We do that this session. Right to work should be on that list along with fair share. That'd be the first thing we get to because it is a complicated issue. And the last thing I'm going to do is making our best place for business. So
that a yes or no on appeal or preservation of ban compulsory membership?
I want to appeal it, but do it in an incremental fashion.
And if it were upheld, were preserved, would you support this fair share provision?
Yes.
And going to national politics, Charlotte, will you support Joe Biden for a second term as president in 2024?
We are so fortunate to have Joe willing to take on another term. Absolutely, I have a lot of confidence in the president. It's the hardest job that's ever created by God. He's doing everything he can. It's a wonderful team imagine. And yes, the challenges with that, but he sort of keeps it in the right direction, particularly his leadership.
And Scasper, would you like to see Donald Trump nominee of the party in 2024?
I'll tell you, Jeff, I am 100% focused on the election in 2021, November 2nd, representing the interests of the people of the 73rd district. And one of the things I'm hearing is people are tired of this perpetual election cycle, constantly looking out. When and who I decide to vote for in 2024, first know.
Is that me?
So, I don't know, I'll let you know what I know.
Virginia's first ever constitutionally created commission for redrawing legislative and congressional lines is at work. But if I'm correct, you were for it before you were against it. But to both of you, do you believe the commission will come up with maps that the legislature can accept? Or do you believe that boundaries will have to be drawn under the supervision of the Virginia Supreme Court? And if so, do you believe a court dominated by Republican justices can come up with boundaries acceptable to both parties? Yes.
Okay. I supported the bipartisan or the commission, voted for the referendum, and I hope that they can come to, the commission can come to resolution on the maps. It's going to be messy. It already is messy. I think everyone expected it to be messy. But they really need to just keep working at it, sharpening the pencil, rolling up their sleeves, doing the give and take back and forth and coming up with the maps. I think the last thing that anybody wants is for the courts to draw them. That is not in the best interest. They just need to keep at it until they get it, even if they miss the virgin deadline next week.
Jeff, I'm actually just a person who's comment with Dick Berger, it's up to how the next few weeks on that process. The one thing I can say with absolute conviction is that we needed a better process, and I supported that from day one. Trying to reform this process.
But not this process. Sorry, but not this process.
Well, I always supported reform. There's a chance for a while to do better, and I made a speech on the floor to that effect that if we had a chance to do better, I thought there was an opportunity for votes went there. So I came back to where we started, which was the constitutional amendment. We still got a long ways to go, but I just want to be able to look at a map and know why this line is here, this line is here. Right now, I have applications for voters. I'm not sure whether they're in my district or not sometimes. We have to get the computer out.
Depends on what side of the street you're on.
Exactly. I'd like to simplify that.
With the legalization of recreational use of marijuana, Virginia will set up a system under which weed will be available for over-the-counter purchase. The envisioned plan will allow many of these pot dispensaries to open in neighborhoods disproportionately affected by arrests and prosecution for legal sales and use of marijuana, most often neighborhoods of color. Should there be greater latitude in the law to allow such stores in other areas, such as the more affluent sections of Henrico County? And as a follow-up, have you ever used marijuana?
I'll be honest, I haven't gotten weeds on this legislation too far, but I'm so curious why the legislation that was passed in the session, there was then a special session to accelerate the process. while there was a pandemic going on and so many other issues that, in my view, were of a much higher priority. I spoke with business owners, I've spoken with police officers, heard from Chief English in Henrico County that in a lot of ways this is coming from cart before the horse in terms of, you know, the canine, not fleet, but the canine part of the force all had to be retired. New dogs brought in. You know, all kinds of issues that were not resolved before this acceleration of, you know, happened due to the special session. So I've also heard from parents that are, you know, that have children grown that have struggled with substance misuse, and it is in many of their view that this is not well thought out. So that's where I am on that. And in terms of where the you know, where these particular dispensaries are, I'm always in favor of the free market. We would love the free market rule.
And my question regarding use.
Oh, college. But I didn't.
Marijuana legalization, first of all, to talk about that in broader context, that ship has sailed. Numerous other states now have already legalized marijuana. There's good news there. We were able to benefit from lessons learned, what's worked and what hasn't worked in other states. And even with what we did pass, I'm absolutely committed with, as the leadership of our caucus, to do more with it. This is a big, we're bringing new industry, the legal industry. The particular point on accelerating the legalization part, that's a criminal justice issue. The reason we were in that special session during the pandemic was because of both the COVID impacts, but also the criminal justice issues before us. The marijuana enforcement, the white and black, for example, people smoke marijuana in very similar numbers. So the prosecution rates for blacks is literally 3 times whites. There's no way to explain that number.
And the use question.
No.
Okay.
The other places, they're not that.
We have time for one more question, then we'll go to closing comments. So with the Confederate monuments coming down in Richmond, which monuments, if any, should go up in their place? Or should government get out of the monument business, recognizing that heroes of one generation or a slice of the population may not be the heroes of succeeding generations and an increasingly diverse population? I think the question goes first.
We are fortunate in Richmond. We're absolutely blessed with one of the most creative communities, I think, in the country. What you guys said, DCU and DMFA, other galleries here, the marketing, there's incredible creative force and an incredibly diverse creative force, diverse race, thought, authenticity. And I'm deferring in that work. I am so proud that the governor has been being led through the DMFA to look at this. They're going to come up with a great solution. And I have confidence in them. I consider myself a fairly creative person, but they're much sharper minds out there to come up with a great message for Richmond, and we're going to celebrate all parts of our
With regard to the monuments, I'm not comfortable with the people of in 2020 deciding what parts of history are relevant and what parts aren't. I would like to see our Monument Avenue, if we're going the monument route, it needs to be public input. To me, the lingering pain over what happened is that there wasn't public input. There was mob rule. That should have been a community-wide decision what to do with this with monuments. I would love to see us tell the whole history of Virginia and Richmond on Monument Avenue. I'd love to see Maggie Walker on there. It'd be great to have a woman on Monument Avenue. I think we can tell the whole history with without it being painful to people, and just showing where we were, where we're going, and then leaving room for the future generations to make their mark.
Of course, I do understand the other suggestions. We have time now for closing statements of both candidates.
Actually, I think he goes first.
You started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much for moderating this evening. Again, thank you to ChamberRVA for this opportunity. I am so pleased to sit here as a resident of Henrico County, look at this county today. Henrico County is doing so well. I was fortunate enough to join the ribbon cut of J.R. Tucker High School a few weeks ago. We spent and invested over $250 million in schools in Henrico. The students there are absolutely thrilled to be in an environment like that. They're going to be better. J.R. Tucker is the most diverse high school in this county. 120 countries are represented in that high school. Right in the middle of my district, right in the middle of the change that Henrico has witnessed. Lived here a long time. We are a more diverse county than we've ever been. And we're a better county because of that. And I'm so fortunate now to be in the legislature able to reflect that diversity through our laws, to protect that diversity through our laws, to be a more inclusive community and really welcome all. I had good fortune to join something I did not think I was going to see in Henrico County, a cricket match being played on a dedicated cricket field in Henrico County. And it's not just two teams, there's an entire league of cricket teams. That's the diversity we have in Henrico. We need to recognize that. We need to recognize the economic success we have and keep things rolling. I talked to a lot of people at the divorce, and honestly, the thing they say to me most often is thank you. Thank you for the progress we've made. Thank you for protecting the environment. Thank you for protecting reproductive health care. Thank you for expanding our educational opportunities for at-risk students. Thank you for making healthcare more affordable, expanding Medicaid, incident cap, all those different things. So I am here to protect that progress, and it's absolutely an honor to serve the 73rd district. Thank you.
We are 28 days from election day, and voters have a choice to make. And there's some pretty real differences between me and my opponent on a host of issues. We didn't really get to all of them this evening, but just to hit some of the high points. When it comes to education, I do have a 4P plan. One of the things that we didn't talk about at all is protecting advanced curriculum. And I believe that is a very stark difference between me and my opponent. I believe that parents absolutely should have input on their children's curriculum at the schools. And my opponent and the people at the top of their ticket do not. It's astounding, but that is the case. And I feel like we've got a lot of repair work to do from the pandemic because the lack of leadership is really getting schools to open earlier. There's learning loss again that we're going to be dealing with for decades. I'm not beholden to any teachers union. My priority will always be teachers and students and parents when it comes to education. On taxes, I want to see taxes roll back, the grocery tax, we talked about that, gas tax, the increased cost of utilities, hitting families very hard. So, there's some real pocketbook issues that where we differ. And then really balance. We need to bring balance back to Virginia and our legislature. As your delegate, I will take my job seriously. I will do my homework, and I will bring accountability, reason, and balance back to Virginia. I'm a really good listener, and I never outsource thinking for myself. The time is now. Join me and my team MFK. Let's get Virginia back. I ask you humbly to vote for Mary Margaret Castleberg, which will be now on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.